So my name is Paul Piesner. I'm with an organization called City Serp. I'm also with Geo, and I love the whole tech space. About a year ago, my journey took me from my tech career into making an effort to make a change in industry. And I didn't have to go far. I had a family, and I'd always been involved for the last 30 years in organizations trying to help people get started.
I hope that the Computer History Museum
in terms of how it started a year ago. So I'm not a professional nonprofit organization person. This is all new for me. But it starts off about 1981. I'm just a troublemaking young person trying to kind of carve my way out in life, and I ran into a family. Well, I didn't run into a family. I ran into an individual. And it was this individual. She was a great-looking girl. We're out on a date. She came with 3 brothers, I found out later, that had a whole family with it. But the family story was pretty amazing. I don't know if you can go to the next slide. So back in 1969, back when I was teeny tiny, this dad who was a pastor was on his way to church. And on his way to church, a drunk driver or we don't know if he was drunk, but he was... alcohol was involved. He came across the highway, head-on collision. Thank you. A car came across and hit them head-on. Their dad was immediately killed. The mom was in the car and was thrown from the car with her ankle kind of being torn up. So it was almost a year before she could walk. So when I was talking to Stuart, I just said, there's 4 kids, 3 boys and 1 girl. What are the odds of a family in the East Bay recovering from a devastating effect like that when they suddenly lose their dad? Because dads don't always go to jail. Dads don't always get divorced. Sometimes dads die. And a family that was kind of aspiring suddenly lost their dad. And Stuart's comment to me was, not knowing who the family was, probably not good. They're probably going to head down a path where they've got to figure out who they are in a society without someone to take care of them. Mom's not around. They're throwing people between houses, trying to keep all 4 of the kids together. The reality is, one of the family friends had a generous resource. It was a trailer home with 2 kids, and she decided these kids are not going to be broken up by the state. They're going to come home and live with me in my trailer. So all 3 kids were packed up and shipped off, and for 6 months they lived in the trailer. But it wasn't just the kids. When the mom was able to walk, they brought the hospital bed into that same trailer, and all of them lived there for 6 months. She was able to get back on her feet. She got through job training. She was able to find a job and get back on her feet. The other side of the story is that the house they were going to move into wasn't done yet. Their dad had been working on weekends and evenings to build it, and it wasn't done. They were in short-term housing. They were in an apartment. So they didn't have a place to go. What they didn't know was some of the men from the community decided while the mom was in the hospital, they were going to finish the house. And so while the kids were in the trailer, the house was completely finished. It was just gutted, and they kind of finished up the house, and it was completely restored to a place it was living in. So when she was able to walk, they took her to the house, and they were able to move right in. But it didn't stop there. There were other members of the community that surrounded these 4 boys and inspired. The mom didn't have a job right away. A lot of the food came in mornings. Boxes would be dropped off on their front porch, and they lived hand to mouth for a period of time, and they remember that. Well, these 3 boys, when they grew up and they went off to college, all of them got jobs. It was great. But when they came back to the East Bay, kind of when I got introduced to them, and part of their everyday activity was taking phone calls from other places, other people that didn't have enough food. They would get phone calls, and they would stop off at the grocery store, and they'd get donated food, and they'd give me gas money, and they'd say, hey, can you and Susan just drive this to Stockton? Can you drive this to a family? Here's the address. And I was like, gas money, I'm in. Okay. So our first dates were driving and dropping off food, but we've been doing this since 81. It was an amazing family. I didn't think anything of it. It was a lot of fun. We went and met a lot of great people in different parts of the Northern California area. And it was just part of what we did as we kind of like grew up and kind of hung out together. The 3 brothers end up becoming CEOs of 3 different organizations. So the oldest brother is CEO of an organization called Convoy of Hope. It's one of the largest food distribution organizations, nonprofit food distribution organizations that respond to disasters around the world. The middle brother is, middle brother's in charge of the lost cities of North America. He goes in and helps organizations discover what resources they have right in their communities, and he tries to get faith communities and city leaders working together to get those back hills cities working really well. He's amazing at it. The youngest brother started an organization called CityServe. Hence, I'm with CityServe. I really love the model because what we found during a last-minute request by the previous administration, they had a food distribution challenge, and they asked us, how can we get food distributed across North America? So we quickly came up with a plan, and we took the food out to, not just from food banks, but to churches. It was an act of Congress that allowed us to make those changes, and we quickly set up a food distribution process during the end days of the COVID era. And that was the first time we realized that we had this great network, this ability to get things to other places. So what CityServe was decided to do was to kind of make the local communities the heroes. We want them to be the ones to be the heroes, to deliver that last mile, because we come in, drop stuff off, and then we leave. But if you give it to the local communities of faith, they'll take it to people in need, and they'll invite them back to a place to hang out with them, and they'll build relationships around them. So one of the brothers has just done this neighborhood effort at a grand scale. Every time there's a bad event in the neighborhood, he runs to that place. He swarms it, and in the case of Maui fires, the Sands Hotel said, hey, we have a 747. If you can get food to them. So within 24 hours, we were the first 250,000 meals in Maui after the fires were happening. We just kind of responded quickly. And it's not that we are trying to rush this. We just had resources. We've been responding to the communities inside Ukraine. We used local faith communities in Poland to drive across. So we'll buy the trucks, the gas, and they provide the volunteers, and they just drive it across. But it's all done through local. We don't really get involved. We kind of let the distributed model take place, and we tell them what we're trying to do, and then they validate that they delivered. So we've been doing this for 4 years. We're about 4 years old with CityServe, and we just come back to Northern California. What are we trying to do? We're trying to find the weekend heroes. These are the folks that gather on the weekends with faith communities to get back out in the streets Monday through Friday, right? This is where we gather as groups on the weekends, but we don't necessarily gather together to help drive efforts to improve our communities. So CityServe is committed to kind of helping efforts of pre-existing heroes and efforts to try and get them to work together so that not only are we solving individual problems, but we're working as a collective to solve our city problems. And this is kind of what we're trying to do, is we don't want to be visible. In fact, we want to be invisible when we deliver. We want to provide endless flows of resources. And if you stop by the stations out here, what you'll find is a place where we want you to walk home with something. In fact, if you stop by, you'll find one of our partners is passing out candy bars, right? This is a health bars, and there's a whole story behind this. So we invite you to stop by and ask that question. But we have a whole series of resources. If you are a faith community, we'd ask you to stop by, pick up a book. We've bought one for you for small groups to kind of how to help people that are coming out of really difficult times. We've got a lot of resources out there. So please stop by and talk to the folks that are out there. CityServe has 3 core capabilities. We get resources donated by returns. We get them out to people who want to volunteer in the community, and then we kind of teach them where are the problems, like what are the issues that you should be taking care of in your city, and then we build out the networks. The networks are really what's key for us. Because when we focus on the 10, what we call these initiatives, these efforts to really improve our communities, we go through a list of systematic discussions, and then we talk about the different ways you do that. Are you doing it because you're going out to the street? Are you doing that when they come knock on our doors? Thank you, Morgan. Or are you doing this when you step alongside of them for the rest of their lives? Are you going to walk with people through their journey to try and break patterns and set up new ways of living? So it's not a simple go do one thing. What we want to do is, are you really addressing the issues in your city, and are you doing it in a way that you understand who goes out to people, who welcomes when they want to make changes, and then who walks alongside them? Because all 3 of those are important, and not one of them is more important than the other. it's impossible for CityServe to do this. What we do is we try and find the heroes and the organizations that are already doing great work, and we try to get them more resources. We try to get them connected with each other, and we try and help them in any way we can in the background, because we need them to be successful, and we need other cities to follow their lead. I've been lucky enough to meet a number of organizations, and the logos down there are just amazing places. All have stories, all are incredible organizations you can work with. We have an app where we take photos of people on the street getting help, and it's an amazing experience. We'd love for you to tell the whole story out there on the CityServe desktop out there. But I do want to introduce you to one of the heroes. So in this one-year journey that I've been on, I met Vanessa Russell. So Vanessa Russell is this amazing individual. If you haven't met her yet, you guys got to talk to her. Just as an individual, I mean, she's heroic in everything she does. But her network, her expertise, she kicks my backside on tech discussions. I come from the tech industry, but she's way more in-depth understanding. So there's not an area where I can actually have a conversation she can't go. So for me, it was great to find a hero, someone who was willing to jump in her car, put herself in harm's way, and not be afraid to take on the ugly challenges. Let me get Vanessa, come up here.
You're supposed to talk me down and I can over-deliver.
No. So when we were out talking about how do we talk about pulling the community together, I just said, well, that's easy. We just get Vanessa up here because she knows everybody. So Vanessa, I went through and we created a list of some of the most heroic individuals in our community that we may or may not be aware of. And we've got those folks coming up in a panel, and we're going to ask Vanessa to introduce us and kind of get us started with some questions and answers.
This is for you.
Excellent.
Water. All right. Excellent. Well, we've got quite a lineup, and thank you again, Paul, and thank you for CityServe and all that you guys do. They have been such an amazing resource to Love Never Fails, and we're building strategy around knowing that food will be on the edge of different cities, sitting with various churches because of the empowerment that CityServe is providing. I want to invite up our just amazing bomb.com panel of leaders, faith-based leaders that are taking on roles in the community as nonprofits, as government leaders, and the like. And so first, I'd like to invite up Nancy Ortberg. Nancy is the CEO of Transforming the Bay for Christ, and she is also a pastor. She has pastored, I think, it says here for 2 years, because you're like 21, right, Nancy? Yes, it says 2 years. Yeah, she told me to say she was a physicist. I couldn't pronounce it. But no, so Nancy is amazing. She's doing wonderful work with the TBC, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about kind of the next thing for TBC. I also have Glen Peterson. Glen, if you want to come up, he is the president of City Team Ministries, also a tremendous organization, feeding people across the Bay, housing people, working with people in mentorships, and Glenn has been the president over the last 7 years, just leading the charge. And we, again, thank you for City Team has really supported us personally, so I want to thank you for that. Also, I have my brother, Pastor Paul Baines. We'll have you come up. He is the founder, president, and CEO of We Hope out of East Palo Alto. He also runs a chaplaincy program. He's also on several boards. He and my husband grew up together, driving his dad crazy. So I know some inside scoop. He's a good man. He's an awesome person, innovator. Great to have him on the panel. Also, I would love to offer up the dynamic duo. We have Pastor Alicia, let me get it right, Party, and Pastor Tyrone Party. I'm gonna have you both come up. they they run collectively. They run Maranatha Christian Center in San Jose, but they also separately. I just found looking at the bio for my brother, Dr. Pastor Tyrone, that he's from Chi-Town, the South Side. Chaplaincy programs, leadership, senior pastor for many, many years, and such an empathetic leader, as well as his lovely wife, Pastor Alicia Party, as well, is an MFT and has a passion for mental health and solving mental health in amongst churches, really bringing that insertion point with nonprofits and churches. So we're going to start our conversation to just really step into a few areas that are super important, right? So as faith-based leaders, I want to ask you, what we know that churches, faith-based organizations play an important part of solving the biggest issues in the Bay Area, in the world. And we've attempted to do some of that work over the last, let's say, 20 years. And many of you are the innovators that have started things like the mobile showers, or the the warming shelters, or the new thing that you're doing, City Team, with the community groups and the mentoring, and language-specific mentoring and things of that nature. What do you see now? What are the gaps that you guys are noticing, and things that I remember in the tech world, this is back in the day at Cisco, our president Chambers, he used to say, how are we going to disrupt this market? How are we going to catch the disruption? Where is the disruption in homelessness, in serving the underserved, that you think the church or that faith-based organizations are prepared and particularly equipped to disrupt and or make a big difference? And maybe we should start. Anyone want to go first? I saw that eye, Pastor Baines. Let's get you in here.
Well, I think that the faith-based community can disrupt the challenge of dealing with the affordable housing crisis. Many may or may not know that faith-based really in California controls about 55,000 acres of land that's underdeveloped or underutilized. And so when we look at addressing the shortage of housing in the Bay Area, which is roughly about 500,000 units, that the faith-based community can actually take a big appetite, a chunk out of that, and help to solve that by partnering with other organizations, particularly nonprofit developers, to utilize that land for affordable housing.
Yes, I love that. Yes, you have a, yes, please.
Yeah, I was going to say, and you were instrumental in helping my own neighborhood, about a mile from my house. A local church was able to put 28 homes of folks that were living in the creek below my neighborhood, and got them in. And 3 years later, it's an amazing community. 10 of them have moved on, and 18 of the originals are still there. And it's been a great, so I really appreciate all your help. And TBC was definitely part of that as well, helping to take a 11-year lawsuit and turn it into a very friendly relationship with our city council. And that was amazing to see that shift. So I thank both of you guys.
Wonderful. Nancy, what do you think about that?
I think the disruption comes when churches start to show up for systemic solutions. I tell churches all the time, backpack drives and painting murals are great if they're a strategic tip of the spear to get invited for the bigger issues. There's not a it's great to give a kid a backpack. There's not a principal that loses sleep over that. In fact, I've had a lot of principals pull me over to cupboards and open them up, and closets are jammed full of backpack drives. What they lose sleep over is third grade reading levels, which are academically predictive, and they lose sleep over teacher retention. So how do we get invited to the table with all the great giftedness in the congregants that go to our churches that say, we've got some people in our church that might be able to help solve some of those things. So asking them what they need, and then showing up for more than just the anecdotal things and really trying to collaborate on a systems level.
Love it. What do you think, Glenn?
Yeah, I'll pick up on that last point that you made, Nancy. For us, it really is about the consistency, the commitment that we hope to see from the church community. Some of the challenges that the people that we serve face are not challenges that get addressed, through 2 or 3 meetings with a person. Some of this can take years to overcome trauma, to address the barriers that are causing a person to remain in poverty. And it's really our model to pair people from the Christian world on a one-on-one basis at a mentor type role, both with people in our residential recovery programs as well as the people that we serve in the low-income neighborhoods.
Excellent. How about you, Alicia? Yeah.
I'm going to say collaboration.
Oops.
I'm going to say collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. I remember 20 years ago when it wasn't just a church, but it was the interfaith community. And the interfaith community came up with some innovative ways to address mental illness in our community. And we know when we're talking about unhoused people, you can't treat one portion of a person. After they innovated the program, the government took it and then offered it to the Medi-Cal. And the collaboration stopped. I'm going to say we have to come back together as an interfaith community because we have more in common than we have that's different. And when we come together and we start to share resources, I should know what you're offering. You know, I'll say this, that the community usually trusts their faith leader, whether it's a pastor, a rabbi, an imam, they trust the community. And if we can teach each other, you know, teach about mental health, as well as collaborate and share resources, we can deal with an entire person and eradicate homelessness.
Yes. Yes, please.
I guess I'm going to try to hit this on two different levels. One, PB&J. Anybody know what that is? Peanut butter and jelly. And one of the things that I keep seeing is that some of us have gotten a little too arrogant and too educated, and we've lost innovativeness to understand that if you got peanut butter and you got jelly and I got the bread, we get together, we got PB&J. That's called partnership and working with what we have. I think it's amazing because systemically in our minds, we've created this less than or assuming that's what you have would not help in the solution. It's partnership. It's putting it together. I've been doing this for 38 years, going from one community to the next. I've even gone across the water, and I keep seeing this one thing. We systemically label people, and we forget that they are the most powerful entity on the planet. God made them in a certain image, powerful as stewards, who can do all things but fail. So I don't get it why we can't get together, why the private sector and the public, the county and the churches cannot come together and make a good PB&J sandwich.
Yes. Come on, go ahead, Paul. What you got? You got some bananas on that? What you
Nice.
got? Okay. Sorry.
So a year in, I got my peanut butter and jelly here. So a year in, I think what I found is that our community has really lost its sense of neighborhood. Working with San Francisco, who has a little bit of a homeless issue, what they identified was the fact that we hired professionals to go take care of them. Back in the day, it was just, I had a quirky character in my neighborhood, and they were my quirky character, and I cared for them, right? And as quirky as they were still in my neighborhood, and they were part of my extended family, and I made room for them. Today, we want to throw money, we want to throw resources, and part of what we believe is if I give you so much stuff you can't find, you can't stop yourself from giving it away, you'll go build relationships. We'll go build and restore those relationships. We'll care and we'll solve this one person at a time. San Francisco's homeless issue only takes one person solving it for one person enough times where the peanut butter and jelly effect does have effect in that whole city. I think just getting back, remembering there are just our neighbors. And it's in certain parts of my life, I'm just a couple of really bad decisions away from being there.
Yeah. I earlier today we heard from Dr. Bryan, and he said that one of the reasons why we have homelessness is that we've gotten away from the extended family, from the grandma and the auntie and and we've become so mobile even, the transportation is so easy, $29 round trip Southwest. And so I'd rather go down south than spend time with my neighbors. what do you guys see? What are some practical things that people could start to do right there in their very own neighborhoods to reach people? And I'll just add one more thing, a stat that was interesting. There was some discussion about adding loneliness to the DSM-5, which is the diagnostic, the counseling manual, adding loneliness. It's become an epidemic. And so how can we begin to solve that? And what are some practical suggestions that you would offer up to those that are here? Anyone want to start us? Yeah.
I can start with some of the things that we've actually been doing is really walking the neighborhood. We literally walk our neighborhood, say hi to people, meet with people, talk with people. We've opened up our home. It's interesting because in doing so, what happened is we had a neighbor whose son was killed in San Jose, and guess who they came to say, could you pray for us?
Yeah.
Just by having a relationship. The first thing we have to do is connect as people. So it's the relationship, making ourselves available. Now we have people coming over to our house, and we have what we call prayer and play. We play together, we pray together. And just being in the community, and just being available to people, I would say. And people are lonely with millions of people around them. Right? And so sometimes it's that authentic connection that people are looking at, that you see me and that I can see you, and we can just appreciate each other's uniqueness and the value in one another. And I think if we can go back to that, I think it would help with loneliness.
What do you think about that, Glenn?
I think, we operate a variety of services for the homeless community that we can always use more support from people coming down and really putting a face of humanity on the interactions that we have. We go out with a mobile food truck to the encampments that remain in the valley. We have a nightly food program where we serve 150 members of the homeless community each night. Those people don't get a lot of love. They don't get a lot of personal interaction. I think a broader challenge that we have, though, which isn't exactly to the question, we spend a lot of time, and a lot of our go-forward strategy is tied to people in low-income communities. And the challenge that I think that we have with most of the people in the church community, as we understand it around the room, is a language barrier. And there is, as we see it and understand it, there is a huge loneliness epidemic that exists, and all the challenges that come with living in poverty. And it's very hard when you can't speak the language to try and come alongside somebody and help them address their concerns. So I'm not sure what the answer to that is, but it is a challenge.
So, vas a hablar en español, ¿de veras? Come on, Glenn, let's go. Okay, Nancy, what about you?
Well, I think part of the challenge, it's what you said earlier, Glenn, of needing to activate church people to come alongside of the programs, is to remember, what does it mean to follow Jesus? To serve means to inconvenience yourself for the sake of the other. And I think we're so reluctant to do that. And I think to challenge churches to say, a lot of Western culture is very antithetical to the gospel. I'll do it when I have time, I'll do it when I feel like it, and bring your kids with you. How do you inconvenience yourself for the sake of the other? And then with Alicia, like collaboration, I think part of what we need to remember is here's what collaboration is going to take from us. Taking our egos down a couple of notches. Thinking as Christians we don't struggle with ego. Oh my gosh. Of course we do. Or when we, even in joking, disparage another organization that's doing good work, we create distance. You cannot collaborate when there's distance. You need proximity. So if somebody criticizes another organization, it's, you know what, you're probably right, because no organization is perfect, but they also do great work.
Yeah. To
fill in those gaps, and then to just say, my small group at church, or my friends, I'm going to bring them with me to serve. We are going to inconvenience ourselves for the sake of the gospel. The last thing I'll say is in Philippians 2, that passage in chapter 2 that's called the Christ hymn. Most of our Bibles translate it terribly. They say, even though Jesus was God, he took upon the form of a servant. It's not what the Greek says at all. It says, because he was God, he took upon the form of a servant. You are never more like God when you're serving.
Woo.
And to recapture that vision for our churches would solve a lot of this stuff up here.
Nice. Love it. Okay. So I'm going to be needing to wrap here in just a second, but I want to give each of you rapid fire the opportunity to just say one word. If you're speaking to those that are in the room, charge the audience. What's one word that you can give them as we move forward that they can hold on to?
Get involved. As uncomfortable it is, just get involved. I think that's the most important thing. You'll find something more meaningful, but 90% of us want to help. Less than 20% of us actually do. Get involved and volunteer somewhere. So get your neighbors, get your friends, bring them with you, and get involved and do something, because they'll do something more.
Yeah. Pastor Tyrone.
Empower people to be people. Stop putting the labels on them. I've never met a high-risk person. I don't even know who that is. Take the labels off. Every one of us who've gotten a certain level of education, we need to take the labels off, because when you meet me, you meet Tyrone. Or if you came from my neighborhood, Boneyard or T-Bone. Yeah, that's who you met. You met Tyrone. You didn't meet a high risk. You didn't meet someone who had the number 10 on ACEs by the time he was 9 years old. You met Tyrone. Let's take the labels off and meet people and encourage them and empower them with words of affirmation.
Yes. Pastor Alicia.
People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. We cannot continue to build welfare-like systems, getting people dependent on us. The goal is to to teach them how to fish for themselves, right? So when we build solutions, let's build something so they can get the job that you have, so that they can sustain their family. But starting with love.
Yes. Pastor Paul.
My one word is courage.
Courage.
If we don't have the courage to stand up for others, those that don't have a seat at the table, those that don't have access to information, have access to resources, if we don't notice that, then we're doing God a disservice. We're doing our fellow brothers and sisters a disservice. I truly believe that none of us is as strong as all of us, and we're better together than we are apart. So have the courage to engage and to speak up when you know things aren't right.
Yes. Glenn.
My one word would be pray. And I think to apply that more specifically, probably two different things. One, to pray for revival in the Bay Area and the things that your organization, Nancy, has been all about. I really feel that we could be on the cusp of something really big as it relates to Christian revival here in the Bay Area. So let's pray for that. And I think the other thing, I think that we may be on the cusp of greater partnership between the public sector and all of us here in this room and organizations like ours. I think that some of these challenges have gotten so intractable that there's a recognition that we do really, really good work. But my prayer would be that not only would they give us more space to do that, but maybe even some funding, which could help a lot. So pray.
Pray. Nancy, take us home.
I would say most of us are here because we're wired to want to change the world. We're probably not going to change the world. Zechariah 4, do not despise the day of small things.
That's it. All right, well, let's give our panel a hand clap here. Thank you so much.